replicas for Kennedy. This is for you, Kennedy. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us for the November 15th meeting of the Student Advisory Council. We would like to welcome our special guest. We will now call the November 15th, 2023 council meeting to order. Ms. Gibson, will you please call roll?
Representing Best Academy, Mr. Scott.
Here.
Representing Best Academy, Marquavius Clayton. Representing Carver Early College, Herman McGee. Representing Carver Early College, Zachariah Artister. Representing Carver STEAM, Malik Paris. Representing Carver STEAM, Daria Hughley. Representing Charles Drew, Gabriel Bivens. Representing Coretta Scott King, Anike. Representing Coretta Scott King, Shatara Hightower.
Here.
Representing Frederick Douglass, Denisha Griggs. Representing Maynard Jackson, Liam Smith. Representing Maynard Jackson, Kelsey Allen. Representing KIP, Kennedy Upshaw. Representing KIP, Caleb Wisher. Representing Benjamin E. Mays, Tamar Eccles.
Here.
Representing Benjamin E. Mays, Kanaya Lawrence. Representing Midtown, Liam Norzing.
Here.
Representing Midtown, Madison Walker. Representing North Atlanta, Uridian Ramos. Representing North Atlanta, Luke McCullough.
Here.
Representing Thurl High School, Kyla School. Representing Thurl, Terrence Harris. Representing Washington, Casey Hall. Representing Washington,
Here. Lean. Is there a motion to approve the October 25th Student Advisory Council meeting minutes? Is there a second? It was moved by Zachariah and it was properly seconded by Kennedy. Are there any questions? All in favor say aye. Any opposed? So our first, excuse me, our first topic on the agenda is a presentation from Hazel Health. So let's give them a round of applause.
One, two.
We are members of the Hazel Health. Hello, y'all hear me? Okay, so Dr. CT tells us that we have 20 minutes, so we're gonna spend about 10 on what is Hazel, and then 10 getting to know you all, and I'm getting some feedback from you all. We know that it was this very group, the student advisors, who with then Superintendent Dr. Herring said, hey, we need more support, especially mental health support for us and for our peers in our buildings. And so we're here to give you an update on where Hazel is, and then to also get some feedback about what we could be doing even better for you all. So next slide. Okay, so show of hands, who in here has heard about Hazel Health? Okay, so we're starting from a good place. Who in here, if you're comfortable sharing, has had a personal experience with Hazel Health? Okay, good. So we see the headlines. One thing that you should know about me and Letitia, we're both products of Atlanta. We still live here in the metro Atlanta area, and so the partnership with Atlanta Public Schools is important to us, not just because we work for Hazel, but because you all are our neighbors. Letitia actually worked in the school system, and so she has a double fondness for APS. So we know the stats, right? Students are in crisis, and so we're here to support you all and want to talk to you about what Hazel could be doing more in schools. I'm gonna show a brief video and then talk a little bit more about what Hazel looks like on campus.
Why do some of us get help when we get sick and some of us don't? Because today, there are millions of kids like me across our country that have little to no access to healthcare. We are unseen when we hurt, unheard when we're struggling, invisible to our system every single day. That is not okay. There has to be a better way, where the best of technology and the best of people make healthcare fair. And as simple and fast as using my phone. So every child, no matter our neighborhood, no matter our zip code, no matter our background, get the very best healthcare, wherever we are, whenever we need it. That's an America I want to live in, where every one of us is seen, heard, and cared for. In our schools, in our homes, because when we're healthier, our families are healthier, our communities are healthier, our country is healthier. That would be a much better way. A much better way.
Any reactions to that video? Anybody?
At Hazel, we believe all children.
So you heard in the video that our motto at Hazel is that every child deserves to be seen, heard, and cared for. The number one reason that students miss school today is what? Anybody know?
Yeah, like mental health. Like I know I've taken a free day.
Yeah, absolutely. It's physical illness and mental health. And so here is Hazel to fill the gap. So you heard we want students to get help wherever they are, whenever they need it. And so we offer telehealth solutions. A student can see a doctor for a bump or bruise, allergies, it's cold season, germs are going around. You can see a pediatrician via an iPad. And the same is true for mental health support. So our therapists are here to provide counseling also via a setup as simple as this at school and at home from any device you might use at home. So your cell phone.
if I remember the number correctly, it's 6 appointments. Then it's either you get referred to a long-term therapist or you stop. But my question is, how is that effective for kids who can't really pay out of pocket? And I understand that you're saying that y'all do have a team, but nothing is really a guarantee. And if I come in as a student thinking I'm getting free, like, therapy, is that like explain like you only have 6 sessions or how whatever the amount is, and then we're gonna have to see where it goes from there, or is it just
Yeah, so in the intake, I do explain to parents and, of course, the client that we can actually recommend now up to 20 sessions. It just depends on the service that's needed. That was something that we changed in the last couple of months, so you may be kind of, right on target with what you learned at the beginning of the school year. But so we can recommend up to 20 sessions, but in the intake, I do let you know kind of how many I recommend, but then the therapist can recommend even more. So we all are licensed therapists. So even though I may recommend 6 sessions, therapist may say, I think she needs 15 sessions. And she can do that after the intake. So, they do have a lot more options now, but I do understand your concern because then, like you said, if you don't have the money, how can you do a long-term referral? So, like she said, we try to match you with the best option for your finances. So, of course, there may be somebody that offers a free service, but that's what they refer you for.
That was going to be my question, so thank you for asking that. Follow up to that, if 20 sessions, right, that's maxed out, do you all, especially if the student built a relationship with that therapist, do you all accept external insurance plans or no? Like if they wanted to continue on with that person?
Yeah, it's a really good question. Generally, no. Yeah, due to some partnership arrangements and things, yeah, generally no. Hey there.
So, okay, so I remember because I actually did what Keith told me to do, and I took it to my school. And I remember our registrar at the time, he had told me, and this is not towards you guys or nothing like that, I promise. But he was like, you can't give my kids a limit on, okay, we're going to give y'all this and this is the number. I really do think that's why he didn't, because we have therapists at the school, but I don't think Hazel Health is implemented into our schools. So, like, I think my question is, like, what do you do if schools, I guess schools are going to want to implement it because there are schools without therapists in their schools, so some schools aren't like mine, but, like, how is this, I want to ask, how do you feel about that? Or, like, how does your partnership, what is their mindset? Because putting a number on therapy sessions is kind of like, I don't know, that's not healthy. That's like changing stuff. I'm trying to form the question not forming.
Yeah.
But, like, how does that work? Like, what is the partnership? What is the idea behind Hazel Health? I understand what the idea is, but where did the limiting the number of amount of sessions come from, I guess?
Yeah, so I would say we know that we are a teletherapy solution. So you mentioned some students, some schools have therapists, and I'll mention we work well with therapists in the building, but the reality is a lot of them are at capacity, and some of them actually don't take all insurances or at no cost, so there are some limitations, just being completely transparent. If you as a student require 20 sessions or more, we want to make sure that you're getting the support that you need, and that is probably not going to be with a teletherapy provider. We want to make sure that you have someone who is likely serving you in person, and so teletherapy is not a good fit for every student, and it's not a good fit for every relationship. And so we want to make sure that you get connected to the care that you need if you need the ongoing support. I don't know, Leticia, as a clinician in the room, if you would add to that, but that's part of the thinking.
We got time for 2 more questions.
I'm not gonna take away from you. This is gonna be quick, okay? I guess I'm going back to his question. So, do you guys plan to, like, not be telehealth, to be, like, in the building a little bit?
So if you think about it like this, you may have therapists in the building, right? That's one option. Then you have telehealth. That's another option. You might have outside community resource. That's another option. So it's just another option, another layer. You know how when services come into the school, they may say, hey, we're coming from Spelman College. We want to come in and bring some girls, and we're going to assist with testing or something. It's the same thing. It's just another line of support. Yeah. And so the thing about the 6 sessions is something. You know what I mean? It's not the best, of course, when it comes to someone who needs long-term service. But like she said, it wouldn't be appropriate in it, because if you need the type of service where you need long-term care, you know, what happens when the school day runs out? What happens if you go to another county? So, you know, it's one of those things where it's a lot of factors that, you know, go into us choosing that. And then, of course, I don't really want to speak too much on the funding because I don't know much about it. But what I do know is that, of course, with the funding, you know, they give so much, and then, you know, you have to use that to kind of get what you can with it. And so I think it has something to do with that. You know, like she said, with the insurance, everybody doesn't take all kind of insurance. For instance, me as a therapist, private, you know, I don't take all. Some therapists only take cash. So it's just a lot of different factors. So just a good question.
One more question.
Yeah.
So when someone comes in to the health center at their school and like tells the nurse, you know, hey, I have this problem, is it up to their, like, is it their discretion whether or not they utilize Hazel Health, or how does that process work
On the physical health side?
on either?
Yeah, so generally, I mean, it's the school staff that ultimately has to start the referral or the visit. We see, you know, if a high school student generally is asking for something, like I want to connect to Hazel or I want to start this Hazel visit, 9 times out of 10, the school staff members are going to support that with you all as, you know, older students who can support, you know, decision-making for your health. Yeah.
Thank you so much for your time. What chairs are here? I mean, what committee? Who are the chairs? Where's the chairs? What chair are you? Can you get her email for me? And they're gonna
Yeah.
send you a follow-up email.
Perfect.
Thank you, okay?
Thank you all so much for having us. And if you have any other feedback, Dr. CT, can we route it through you? Okay, perfect. Thank you all.
Thank you. So I did miss a part of our agenda. I apologize. I was supposed to approve the agenda for today. So is there a motion to approve the November 15th Student Advisory Council agenda? Is there a second? Moved by Tamar, second by Tanaya. All in favor say aye. Any opposed? The search committee here? So we're gonna be hearing for the Superintendent Search Committee now. Good evening.
Probably know that this particular has started superintendent search for the next superintendent for Atlanta Public Schools. Mike, all right. So, Madam Chair, to the team, thank y'all for having us. Our goal tonight is to make sure that we capture student voice in the process of ensuring that the characteristics students like to see in the next superintendent is heard before we actually post position. And so we've been around, we've done 4 regional meetings, met with principals, we met with teachers, and tonight we're here meeting with students. I would also like to acknowledge there will be 2 additional meetings taking place. There will be one tomorrow night at 6 p.m., which is virtual. So if you have some friends who would like to offer their opinion, we ask them to do that. And then we'll be doing another one on Friday at noon. On December 4th, all of the feedback you guys have provided in this process will then be considered by the board to identify what that profile will be, so that we can actually post the position in January, and then we'll start doing interviews and all this stuff. This is important because we will probably come out to chair of this committee to figure out, to identify a student or 2 to serve on the community advisory board who will engage with those candidates, however many, we don't have a number at this point, to interview to get us down to 8 finalists. So, if there's someone interested in that process, we will be coming to this board to ask. So with that being said, we hired HYA as a young Tia and Associates to conduct the search on behalf of the Atlanta Board of Education. We do have Dr. Constance Evelyn, who is present tonight, who will engage with you guys. We ask you to give her authentic feedback, just so that we can make sure that your voices are included. She's gonna be seated here just so that she can talk from the mic and take notes at the same time. But about 4 questions that she engaged you guys. So with that said, I'll turn it over to Dr.
Good evening.
Good evening.
I hope you folks had a great day at school today. I have a 17, soon-to-be 18-year-old son, and when he was home with me, because right now he goes to baseball school, let's just call it baseball school, I would ask him every day, you know, highs and lows, right? Hit the highs for me in terms of what was great about today, and share some concerns with me. So that's sort of one of the questions that we're going to be discussing this evening. So I am going to ask you 4 questions. I ask you to please be fully engaged, and I don't think that's going to be a problem from this group, because we need to hear from you. Student voice is very important to this Board of Education in terms of developing the profile for the next superintendent of schools for the Atlanta Public School System. I work for Hazel, Young & Atia. It is a national educational consulting firm with over 30 years of experience in executive searches. And again, this is one of many in-person engagements that the Board of Education has scheduled to ensure that they hear from all stakeholder groups relative to what your expectations are for the next leader of your school district. So obviously tonight we're talking to students, and I will outline the 4 questions for you, which is why I started with highs and lows. So the first question is, what do you think is going well in your schools or in the district? If you're engaged in a district-wide program, you may have something to say about that, or you may just be able to make comments about what you think is going well in your schools. The second question is going to ask you, what do you think the new leader is going to face in an immediate or near future relative to challenges that they might encounter as, the new superintendent of schools. The third question is going to ask you to comment on the personal and professional characteristics you'd like to see in your next superintendent of schools. And then the fourth question is a question about whether or not you have any names you'd like to recommend. And so if you're not comfortable recommending the names in public, I would like you to just write down HYA at hyasearch.com, HYA at hyasearch.com, so that you can send those names in, again, if you don't want to speak publicly about it, confidentially. Does anybody have any questions before we start? Yes, ma'am.
What does HYA stand for?
Hazard, Young, and Atia. HYA is an apple.
So, I'm sorry, excuse me. So this is not just like a free-for-all, so let's just take about 3 minutes to talk to your committees. Y'all get a couple, what you want to say down, so it's not just throwing everything at her at once. So let's take about a couple minutes to do that. We'll recess about 5:40. Let's start to wrap up the conversations and write down your last couple tips. What questions you got? And I can tell you which one was you didn't say. Yeah, and then I can remember which one. Difficult. How is it? Okay, we're gonna start with the communications committee. Are you guys ready? You wanna go? What about academics? Y'all ready? Okay, we're gonna start with academics then. And wait, hold on. Oh yeah, there go the questions. I was about to say if you don't mind repeating them.
Okay, let's start with the first question. What do you think, can you talk about some things that are going well? that
Wait,
you'd
hold on.
like
Before
to
you
see?
start. I'm sorry. Although you're in like an academics or communications committee, you don't have to, you can answer whatever you feel as if it doesn't have to be committee related. It can be anything you see problems with.
Okay, so the first question is, what would you like to see the new leader continue? Things that are going well in the district or your schools, you'd like to see the leader further develop them or nurture them?
I think from personal experience, some things that are going pretty well are just communication between the schools. I know that Dr. Battle actually had the chance to go out to a lot of different schools, and I think just that one-on-one meeting with schools and meeting students and stuff is something new, especially to me. Given that I'm a senior, I hadn't even met our past superintendent, even with involvement with stuff like this. So I think that sort of thing of being physically involved with the schools, not just with newsletters and emails and stuff like that. But I think that's something that definitely could be beneficial if we continued, as well as a continuing of the direct line of communication between the superintendent and schools. And
Okay, thank you.
With the second part of that question, where schools doing well, I think schools are doing very well with following what you guys put out. I feel like a little bit. Like I know we've voiced concerns, and well, my school is, but I know we've voiced concerns of being like, well, y'all said this, but they're doing this, but they're actually doing a really good. You can see that they're like, oh, the district is watching us. Like, no, let's get it together. They actually want to show you guys that we are doing what we're supposed to and things of that nature. So I think the schools are doing that really well, and I feel like he said, as long as you guys like communicate back towards the schools and show that you are actually interested in what's actually going on there, I think that's a really good thing of keeping APS up.
For the last part, the first question, what do you want the next leader to continue? Well, firstly, is what we got going on, but I want the next leader to continue going to the schools that we have, because she actually came to my school. She went to see, talked about,
Are you referring to Dr. Bell?
I
Okay, I'm sorry. I just want to make sure that we have.
think so.
Okay, that's fine.
It might have been the last
Okay, it doesn't matter. You want
Right.
the superintendent
I
to be
want-
visible.
Yeah, I want them to. I want it to be visible
Right.
because the students in my school,
Mhm.
we have STEAM, we have early college, so I'm sure we have similar ideas. But the students come to the student council for our school, and they're like, well, why don't you guys do this, or why don't these people come to our school? You know, you see what I'm saying? And it's like, they want us to make sure that they're heard, and by coming to the schools that are over it, I'm trying to say how to say it. It reinforces the students that goes to the school that people are there and they care about what y'all have going on.
Right. Well put.
Okay, Kennedy, we ready?
Hi, my name is Hazel. In the district would be our expanded cabinet meetings and our principal meetings where we all interact with different staff, principals, and students from each school within high schools, middle schools, and elementary schools, because it gives us a chance to see things from other people's eyes, and it gives us a chance to be put in other people's positions, because not every school is the same, not every cluster is the same, so, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
And to answer the question, what are schools doing well, I know KIP isn't a part of a referral, but I mentioned in our last breakfast with the board about like the safety and how, you know, it's kind of unsafe for kids to be just walking, anything can happen. So KIP took the initiative to start having buses take kids to MARTA stations, and it happens in the morning and afternoon during dismissal. And I feel like it's more safer. They have a ride to the trains, and
You said KIP?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
I want to skip to the second one. Value? I really don't want this to come off the wrong way, but I really feel like we need somebody African American in the position, especially because we are predominantly black in this district, and I feel like, especially the generation coming up, we need to see leaders that look like us. And I also want to say, a strong resume does not always mean a strong person, so don't let that long list, I did this, and I went to this school, overweigh the person who doesn't have that much experience. I don't want to say it like that, but I think those are my two concerns. Communications?
Okay, so what we liked was how, like, our school, we're recently getting new, like, they listen to us, so our food is getting updated. I like how all the schools, they communicate with each other, so if something is working in a different school that hasn't been implemented inside of another school, then they actually talk to each other, and so the schools are able to build off of each other. And we also liked how for APS to be so huge, they can also be extremely functional. What we didn't, what we knew the challenges that the new superintendent will encounter is the distrust that, go ahead.
Sorry about that. So, an ongoing issue within our district specifically is, I think, the distrust towards upper leadership, and that stems, a significant portion of that stems back to 2013 and the entire cheating scandal, but also with, I think, perceptions. Because many of the general sentiments within stakeholders at APS, specifically teachers that have been teaching for over 20 years and have seen many of the superintendents of the last 20 years come and go, is that superintendents stay either for very very small amounts of time and get very little done, even though they have such grand ambitions and everything, and instead just more or less perpetuate the status quo and essentially perpetuate the entire system that is really, in some cases, harmful to stakeholders, or if not harmful, inconvenient, highly inconvenient. So that's something that a new superintendent would have to go up against. Of course, continuity would help with that, which is another issue, but yes, thank you.
Thank you.
So for us, we went to personal and professional qualities. So for the new superintendent, we wanted them to be family oriented, so like able to inform families of what's going on, what's happening currently. Like it's happening, but it's not happening as efficiently as it can be.
Mm-hmm.
And then another one is that we prefer action over like just talking. Like we actually want to see things changing and happening instead of just them saying, oh, this is going to happen and nothing following it. Another one was for them to be open-minded and like non-biased. So like, for example, having more Hispanic heritage and LGBTQ clubs and things of that sort. Like we want them to be understanding of those communities and of sort. And
So in terms of challenges they might face in the future, we identified literacy as a big one. There are a lot of schools in APS who have quite low proficiency rates on state reading tests, and in some of those schools, the proficiency rates are actually declining. So we identified that as one of the challenges they're going to face in the future.
Thank you.
And before we go back to academics, I also want to piggyback off not only literacy rate, but discipline, suspension rate. I'm just going to leave that at that. Suspension rates.
Suspension rates being too high?
Very high. I'm not trying to point, I ain't trying to hate on nobody right now. I ain't trying to be petty. But Mays has a new principal, and they have the highest suspension rate in APS.
And let's talk about why. He is not.
That's personal. I'm just pointing it out and saying that should be a problem.
But like,
that should be something we talk about.
But let's talk about it, and not too much shade. But anyways, I'm gonna say like I love my school or whatever, but she has a point. So before we got a new principal, it was still a problem, like attendance and stuff. Like not attendance, but like the suspension rate or whatever. And they do it because we do tardy sweeps, and every school does tardy sweeps. Am I right?
Yes.
Every school does tardy sweeps, right? So not every school, but we do tardy sweep. And when you get, and I know like this is gonna come back on me, and a lot of admin and teachers and y'all are probably the adults in the room are gonna have a lot to say about it. But after a certain amount of tardy sweeps, you get sent home. And I have a problem with it, and I've been meaning to talk with my principal about it and my APs about it, because but it's not reason, it's not adding up. 2 + 2 isn't 4 for me when it comes to that, because you can't, you upset about the attendance rate and grades and this, that, and the third, but you send the kids home, so when they come back, their grades look a mess because you sent them home. So not to, I love my principal, he's really nice, he's really great, love my school. But like, we gotta talk about some like, OSS gotta be you gotta do something crazy to get OSS, because now it's just you don't wanna be in class, so we just gonna send you home. No, because you want your graduation rate to go up, so when they come back to school and like, it's a domino effect. So yeah, we can talk about that.
Thank you for that.
Yeah, you're welcome.
As far as the third question goes, kind of building off what everyone's been saying, I think just kind of to address the issue of in suspension and a lot of other things, just the hierarchy of power, I think the new superintendent needs to be able to actually put their foot down, because there are a lot of schools and a lot of high schools within APS that see abuse of power, because at my school, nobody gets sent home. Like, that's not, North Atlanta doesn't do that. We don't have a high suspension rate. And I mean, I'm blessed to say that's because we have a pretty well laid out faculty, but obviously that's not the case at every single North Atlanta high school. So I think that needs, or APS high school, my bad. But that definitely needs to be taken into account as far as power goes. I mean, they are the superintendent, and I think there needs to be.
Y'all looking for transfers?
We actually are. We'd love to have more. And then, I just have a couple more things, and then I'm done. As far as the stakeholders' value regarding our schools, for the second question, I think for the most part, a lot of the APS schools are extremely diverse. And I think we need a superintendent who not only is diverse, but also understands that a lot of our students come from a lot of different backgrounds and a lot of different walks of life. And then for the last, I guess, sorry, I'm not going to talk a lot, but for personal and professional characteristics, I know Brooke had stated that we need an African American leader, but I actually want to open the floor to maybe not having a racial bound to that, because I think that a lot of the schools might have, not schools, but parents and stuff might have an issue with that being like considered as like a cutoff, because I think it might just be best to find someone who has a lot of different backgrounds. If they're like, if racial background is taken into account, I think that's great, but I think we need to find the best fit based off a lot of different things and a lot of different mix. But I prefer, when we were talking about it, we'd like them to be familiar with Georgia and familiar with our education system. I think that should be the baseline, because if you're coming from California, Kentucky, New York, wherever, you're not familiar with how Georgia works and with how Atlanta works, because we're not a very basic city. We're a very, very different city, and I think that's a very big factor for that.
Thank you for that. I just need to share that, of course, I'm here to collect all feedback, and I'm going to be respectful about that, and I'm going to carry all of it back to your Board of Education, but it's actually unlawful to include race as part of hiring characteristic. I want to just be clear about that.
Hello, my name is Peyton. So going with the first question of what do I want the next leader to continue, our past superintendent had a very good relationship with me and law enforcement. So continuing that at our school, but also going off law enforcement in schools. I feel like, especially with my school, I feel like even though we still have a lot of problems, I'm not saying everything has changed, we are becoming very, what is it?
It's becoming to a point where we are expecting kids to get in trouble as opposed to allowing them to get in trouble. Does that make sense?
Oh, so you would like a superintendent that has high expectations for student success?
Yes, and with our school, like particularly we have one officer who walks around clanking his handcuffs. Like I feel like that's unprofessional, like very unprofessional. And with kids, especially at the school I go to, probably have a lot of past trauma with law enforcement, because we have to see where we are. We are in Metro Atlanta, and I go to Washington. So the area we're in, that's very alarming for an officer to walk around clanking his handcuffs, yelling at people. I just feel like that's not fair to any student who has that trauma. Also, I feel like the next superintendent needs to really be aware of what actually goes around in school, because you can say, yeah, I visited the school, get your photo out, but you don't really know what's going on. You're not talking to students. And at Breakfast with the Boards, I know mine's last year, we're cut off on what we can ask. And I feel like that's not fair. Somebody who's actually here to listen to the students and not just say they're listening.
Thank you.
Malik, and then Tara, and then Kyler.
Okay, so I was trying to say this before all you for talking, but well, I'm gonna say first that when we don't have often tardy sweeps in our school, and I feel like that is good for our school, because when we do have tardy sweeps, we got a new principal last year, Mr. Fuller. He's one of the best principals. He's amazing. But when we have tardy sweeps, we just go home. There's no oh, you had this many tardy sweeps, so you go home. When you're not in class and you're skipping 3 days, and like she said, you got to do something crazy to get OSS. If you could do something crazy at our school, crazy or unlawful, you know how things are, like smoking and all that stuff, you get caught 2 weeks. And it's like, I'm not gonna. They go to class now. Our last principal, he's now the principal of I think Phoenix. But he got our school right. They do what they need to do. But being that they're so like they enforce discipline now, the students don't really think that the teachers can be trustworthy. And being that we need to we got to do something about it. Because if the teachers can't be trustworthy, the students and all of the programs that our schools are going to or are trying to provide to the students not work out.
Okay, I am, just one second, I'm getting the sign in terms of how much time I have left to talk to you wonderful students. So out of respect for student voice, I haven't done this in any of the other sessions, but I'd like to just do what I term a say back. I'm going to read to you what I've written about these questions to see if we're in agreement and to see if there's something else you'd like to add. It'll only take me about a minute, okay? Okay, for the first question, what you'd like to see continue in your schools and district that's going well. Communication between schools to identify best practice. The visibility of how the superintendent has been involved with schools. I think you're talking about Dr. Battle lately. Schools are walking the talk. They're doing what they're saying they're doing. Communication between the district and schools is good. You'd like to continue student advisory council, expanded cabinet meetings with staff and students, KIP, to continue to ensure increased security to bus and train stations. The food is improving, and you'd like to see some systemic successes across the district. Things that are going well, you'd like to see them implemented district-wide. Let's see here. Some things that aren't going so well. The new leader is going to have to focus on building back trust because it's been eroded over the years, starting with the 2013 cheating scandal and because of what you consider to be high turnover in the superintendency. Convincing folks that they'll be able to stay long-term is going to be an issue for them to overcome. Increasing literacy rates, suspension rates are too high, particularly at Mays, and you'd like to see a more school-based approach to remediating, a system-based approach, I should say, to remediating excessive tardiness. So in other words, you'd like to see some equity across the district around the approach to excessive tardiness. I'm getting to you in a minute. So the personal and professional characteristics you'd like to see in your next leader. Someone who respects and honors student voice, someone who has high expectations for student success, someone who builds good relationship with students, and who partners with community-based supports in a way that promotes, again, a student relationship. Someone who's familiar with Georgia Public Schools, promotes an equitable approach to discipline, someone who's family-oriented, a good communicator who creates effective systems of communication across the district, someone who's African-American, someone who may not have as much experience as the lengthy resume that we receive in comparison, but has a track record for success. Someone who's results-oriented, and someone who's open-minded in terms of being culturally proficient and responsive. That's what I have.
I just want let Kyla talk because she hasn't talked yet. But that sounds perfect.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
So me and Zachariah, we had a conversation, and some of the things that I wrote down, like everybody else said, we want the new superintendent to be open-minded, be able to adapt, be involved, all-inclusive, whether that's with the students, the schools, like, for example, the superintendent not just paying attention to the bigger schools, but also the smaller schools, making sure that everyone has equal education opportunities, someone that is personable. We said that something we want to continue within APS is the collaborative events, so like Student Advisory Council, not Student Advisory Council, the Breakfast with the Board, the SGA Symposium that we had last year, the family outreach event that we're having this weekend, Saturday. Things of that nature to just make sure that everyone feels like their voice is being heard from higher authority within the district. When I was listening, everybody was talking about like the high like rates within the district. So I was gonna bring to your attention maybe like we could create like a policy for discipline across the entire district that everybody follows by, because I know that all schools have different rules, but I think if we all stick to like the same curriculum and same like rules, it'll cut down some of that backlash. I think that was everything. Oh, at my school, we're under a new administration. We have a new principal, and we have 2 new APs. And so far this year, like the climate and culture of our school is improving tremendously. So I think that getting new like leadership within the district that'll like just someone that is going to improve the climate and culture in a positive light.
Thank you.
Oh, I also had a question.
Yeah.
What credentials does the person need, like, for recommendations?
Oh, yeah. That's a very good question. So that person would need to have what they call a Georgia certificate or Georgia license to be a practicing superintendent. I believe that we would be looking for someone with some experience, some administrative experience, right? I've heard from the groups that, other groups, that they would like to see someone who's sort of come up through the ranks traditionally, who's spent some time as a teacher and a building level leader and district level leader. Sometimes you get candidates for the superintendency that are non-traditional in nature, but I've heard from many groups that this community would like to see a more traditional leader. Someone I've heard in the groups that has had a track record of success, particularly in urban environment. So those are some of the things. But in terms of what you need the certificate, which is credentialed by the level of education that you get. Typically, you have a master's degree in administration or a doctorate in educational leadership.
Thank you for that. And we have our guest here. Can you ask your name? So we're going to hear from Lanaya, and then we're not going to take up any more of your time.
Okay, thank you so much.
Okay, so my question, well, it's more, okay, so I'm focused on question 3, the issues that this district currently faces.
I thought you were going to do a presentation of some kind. I'm sorry, I didn't know.
No. So basically, one of the problems that I know for a fact my school faces is testing. I believe that our academic, like the failure rate is constantly increasing. And that's because the teachers are like, well, we have 9 standards and we only did 4 and we're behind by like 3. I believe that we're not grasping none of the education that we are taught due to the pace and how the district said we need to be at this standard by this certain amount of time, and we're behind. Also, then the testing comes to play, and we're not like fully educated based on that certain standard, so we fail, increasing the failure rate. What else was I about to say?
Is
Also,
it a specific test that you're talking about, or just classroom tests?
like it's like
Is it
a
testing-
mixture, because it's like the district tests like unit tests, but then you also have the milestones, because I believe last year we had, for world history, it was like 9 units, and we only did 5, and she rushed the last 4 because it was coming up. So we're not grasping it, and it's really a struggle for us, because I really feel like we need to be educated. We want to learn instead of just testing, because the numbers look nice. So, yeah.
Got it. Thank you.
Let's give her a round of applause for listening. Thank you so much.
Thank you
We
for your time
appreciate
and
it.
attention. I will bring it back.
Make sure if you did not write down the contact information, if you have anyone that you would like to recommend that you did not do it in this setting, please email Connect.
And I would still recommend that you guys join one of the Zoom meetings, even if you don't say anything, just to get some insight on what other people have to say.
Yep, the flyer is in the group me as of today.
So we have one more guest. She will be discussing the board policy. So, Ms. Erica Long.
It's wonderful to see you all again. I'm Erica Long, staff. A graduate of Douglas High School, 10th grader. and I'm honored for her. And before I get into the call, I sat in on just a minute of fall session. Please trust that they will be careful. They will. But your insight, one, they track exactly from adults about the wall or right on terms of what we're getting right. I was very troubled by the comment about software and clean. I will take that back to the battle. That is not how. In fact, I've had conversations with their staff. And they tell their recruits, this is not free. Not appropriate. Everyone in our building, the custodian, bus driver, principal, so that type of environment. I wanted to talk about a couple of changes. The board policy, the administrative regulation have pulled up. So this, you may have heard a little bit of chatter about the previous regulation said that students could not get a grade of if they never said it's not allowed. And it didn't give any guidance about how students that show that they had finished the assignment. So we made a scroll down. So we took out that language about the zero, right here. And basically we're saying that students who have not timely completed the assignment should finish up the assignment by the end of that grading period, and that assignment will be assessed at that time. So you're not gonna just run around at the end of the semester and do a lot of stuff at the last minute, but your teachers are also going to assess those previously missing assignments and give you a grade that reflects your effort. Part of the rationale behind this change is something Dr. Battle talks about frequently with respect to accountability and knowing that you all are responsible. And a part of that responsibility is if you earn a zero, it's okay to get the zero, but then make it up. So this just adds some clarity to that. Y'all have any questions or concerns about that change? Yes.
So just to clarify, this is basically taking away the new missing policy, because I know this year, previously with the pandemic, it was given that you had ample time to recover, but now it's 20% off for every 2 weeks. Is that policy of reduction for late work basically being erased and it's back to completion and being graded based off the work? I would just wonder.
So that 20% part, I think that was a school by school determination. That was not universal across the district. Earlier in the semester, briefly, there was a thought to change the grading floor to make it where the lowest grade you could possibly get was a 50. This does away with that approach, simply because we've got to, at some point, give you all an accurate sense of where you stand as students so that you can put in the work to learn the content. And that reminds me of another comment that I want to let you all know I'm going to take back to Dr. Battle. With respect to course pacing, I heard what you said about the unit and not covering the unit and rushing through things, and I will take that back to our superintendent and our deputy superintendent as well. But this would just say a zero is allowed, but the students should have ample opportunities within that grading period to make up the assignment.
Then quick follow-up for that. So if it goes by, so given that it's school by school for missing work, will this be given to each individual school? Because I know North Atlanta was telling us that this was district policy on missing work, and a lot of teachers take that verbatim because they're being told it's district, and especially being IB and stuff, we have work due at the end of the class period. It's like 6 pages, and if it's not done, you're immediately hashed off. So I was wondering how soon this would go out to schools, given that it is a district policy and that will overturn the school-based.
Yeah. Our high school principals had a conversation with the deputy superintendent about it this afternoon. They will get this information in writing tomorrow, and we're gonna send out this information, just a quick summary of this information to parents tomorrow early in the day.
I have a question about the reasonable, or specifically the word reasonable, the use of reasonable opportunity to redo the assignment / submit the assignment. At whose discretion would that be? Would that be the teacher's discretion? And then if inquiries are made, who makes the final call for that?
We struggle over that word too. And our intention in the next sentence where we talk about within the same grading period, our intention was to offer that guardrail to help describe what reasonable is supposed to mean. We don't want to create opportunities for students to just sort of waste their time or waste teachers' time. But we also don't want a situation where you're told, okay, you're late and you don't have the opportunity period. That's not appropriate.
Yes, that's more or less my concern to that, because in lacking that definition, essentially reasonable means different things depending on the thing. I mean, I personally suggest, I think on behalf of most of my teachers, to add specific guidelines on specific categories of assignments, say summatives, formatives, et cetera, et cetera.
So that level of detail wouldn't necessarily live in an administrative regulation. I think that your instinct is correct, that you can go into that detail in some places. That would be more for schools and academics to come up with SOPs. Because the context for elementary school is different for high school, is different for an IB cluster versus a STEM cluster, but that level of detail wouldn't necessarily live at a relatively high level admin reg.
All right, thank you so much.
Yes, ma'am.
I just had a question about how everyone was saying it's hard to keep pace of their classes. So I know my freshman year we did 4x4 scheduling, and that was very helpful. So is that something that is decided by the principal of each school?
Yes.
Okay, because I was going to say I think that the 4x4 would help a lot with students balancing their classes, because I know that juggling 8 classes can be a lot sometimes, and you get overwhelmed very quickly. So I think that doing 4x4 might also help with the grade, with grades and stuff.
Thank you. I'll take that feedback back, but I would also encourage you all, at your school level, let your principal know your feeling about that. I think sometimes, especially as we have transitions from leader to leader, sometimes you just inherit a school culture, or you inherit decisions that have already been made. But I think it would be very beneficial for your principals to hear from you how the practicalities of the 8 classes at one time. Anybody? Yeah.
I thought of this as I walked out. As far as this being implemented this year, will this overturn any reduction already taken off on grades? So you had technically 100 on an assignment, but were slashed 20 points due to it being late. Will this go back and overturn that, or is it going to be just moving forward, there's no longer a reduction on the grade?
So this regulation does not touch that 20% factor. Remember, that was that local school decision. If there was a short period where there were grades that were coded as missing. As a missing assignment, they should have been factored as a 0. For a short time, they were factored instead as a 50. Our data information group is going back in and correcting that change. And the idea is that we're doing it at this point now so that over the next couple of weeks of this semester, and we have a break next week, of course, yay, you all have time to correct or make up anything that's still hanging out there as missing. Yes, Marie?
Okay, so the missing assignments being counted as a 50, that wasn't on purpose. It wasn't supposed to be like that.
That change, that decision was not properly vetted.
Okay, so
And the superintendent has apologized for that mistake. And our intention is to make sure that your grading is right and that it's accurate. So that's why we're putting in place this change to the regulation.
When you say superintendent, are you referring to Dr. Battle or Dr. Herring?
Dr. Battle.
Okay, yes.
okay, so when is that being changed? Like as we speak, they're going through the process. It's not my place, I know, but being that a lot of students have missing assignments, I'm not gonna say a lot of students, but some students do have missing assignments, and it being counted as a 50 instead of a 0 is most definitely, it being counted as a 0 instead of a 50 is most definitely gonna bring their grade down and possibly cause the students to fail. And also the teachers, the principals telling the subject instructors, them telling the teachers, and the teachers telling the students is also going to cause problems.
I appreciate that. And
yeah.
we've talked through those scenarios. One thing that concerned a lot of teachers especially was you think about the student who does the assignment, puts forth their best effort, and they get a 48. That's the best they could do. And this student over here didn't turn it in,
And they got
refused to turn it in, didn't even try, and they got a 50. And largely, our teachers are good about giving the opportunities to get that missing assignment in. And I know this doesn't apply to you all, but we do have to think about your classmates who are not taking advantage of those opportunities. And at what point do we say, this is where you are, and this is the work you need to do to get to where you want to be? Yes.
I'll say it for you. People need to get their stuff together. I don't want to rush you, but are there any other policies you want to introduce?
Yeah, just one more, and thank you for that. Thank you for taking control of your meeting. I wanted to talk to you all about changes to the dress code. And if we could pull up that other version, yes. So look, I heard your comments about out-of-school suspensions, the arriving late, and basically adult decisions that are removing students from their classroom. And over the years, we have worked through this dress code question. This is an issue of inequity across the district. In too many of our schools, students, elementary through high school, are removed from the classroom because of a dress code violation. And our board has asked us to really move our attention away from what you all are wearing to school, just not spend as much time on that. So the policy committee is gonna meet in here in the morning to look at a revision to the dress code policy that dramatically slims it down and basically says you're required to wear a non-see-through top, a non-see-through bottom, underwear that doesn't show, and shoes. There is a process laid out. If a school wants to adopt a uniform for that school, they can adopt a uniform. At the elementary, and this would start in school year 25-26. At the elementary school level, that uniform would have to be approved by the principal and the GO team. At the middle and high school level, it would have to be agreed upon by the principal, the GO team, and the elected student government. But either way, that uniform is just optional. So if it's your birthday and you're at a school where there's a uniform, but you decide you want to wear a cute outfit on your birthday, you get to do that and stay in class. And you won't get suspended for that, as has happened to students in the past. Let me tell you all why I need your help. This is a district-wide student dress code. However, many of our high schools especially have their own individual dress codes. Those individual school dress codes cannot conflict with, and they cannot be more strict than the dress code laid out here. A dress code violation is a part of the student code of conduct, but that dress code violation should be a minimal level 1. We're not talking about violence. We're not talking about anything that creates an unsafe environment. So we should greatly reduce the chances where students are removed from your precious instructional time because you had on a red Nike shirt as opposed to a blue uniform shirt. Questions, feedback? Yes, ma'am.
Sorry, I've been waiting for this. Okay, like I said, I'm under new administration out of my school. But before, I remember we had dress down day, and I wore ripped jeans, and I got pulled into this room. It was full of us, like we were supposed to go to ISS or whatever. But like, I don't think that other schools and other like administrators in these schools are understanding that if they do have uniform, it can be suggested, but it can't be enforced.
And that's exactly what this policy lays out. Even if the uniform is adopted by the school, it's an optional uniform. The majority of you are at the zone school that was assigned to you. You have to go there based on your address.
Right.
Now, it's one thing if you're at KIPP, if you're at a charter school that you chose, and you chose that culture, including the uniform, that's great. That's all well and good. But what's most important is that you get live time with your teacher. And that time with your teacher is more important than whether you wore the uniform that day or whether there was a rip in your jeans. Now, we don't want to see your underwear, right? So we do want to have a sense of decency and, basic courtesy to one another. But it's gone too far. Yes.
Okay, I wanted to say, well, Carver Early College and Carver STEAM, so we are two separate schools on separate campuses with separate principals. So Carver, y'all don't have wear uniforms, do y'all? Uniform, yeah. So for early college, we have uniform enforced, and I would say that has been a big issue in terms of a lot of people not wearing uniform. So in turn, they get in trouble for it, causing a lot of students to lose time in class solely over what they wore. And usually isn't anything that serious. It's usually like something like some joggers and something comfortable. But just because they're out of uniform, they get taken out of class, and now their grades are dropping. They're not learning what they need to learn. And I just feel it shouldn't be so serious for that to be an issue.
Exactly right. And there are definitely a variety of valid reasons to remove a student from the classroom, from the school. But that Nike t-shirt and a pair of joggers, you're no less ready to learn than the student who wore the red polo and the khaki slacks. And it is petty of us as adults to place so much value in something like that. For a child to walk into a building, the first thing they hear is, "Oh, you don't have on the right thing," as opposed to "Good morning."
Amen.
Yes.
I'm sorry, we only have a couple more minutes. I have two questions. Hat, where does that come in play?
We don't mention, let's scroll. So, now the hat and the hood thing, part of it is a security issue, particularly at the high school level. We know our community, right? So that's the reason for that. We just need to be able to know each other and see each other.
And when was this given to the principals meeting today as well?
Some principals have seen this. They have provided feedback. It's going to be a culture change. We recognize that. But our responsibility to you is to teach you. And we can't do that if we're distracted by other stuff. Yes.
We have time for one more question. So I haven't heard from Kevin today, so I'm going to give it to Kevin.
How you doing? My name is Kevin Scott Jr. Hey, my question is, so schools like BEST and CSK, since we are a choice school, will this policy apply to us or not?
It does apply, but you can choose You can choose the uniform that you like. So your schools can keep the uniform if that's what you want to do. But starting with the spring of school year 24-25, there had to be an engagement process so that these different parts of the community can decide whether to adopt a uniform going forward. Okay.
And I was just wondering if we could get access to both these documents in order to meet with our school to start talking about dress code stuff, or is that a down period on that? 'Cause I know you are.
The board is scheduled to do a final approval of it at their December meeting. Once that's done, I will send it out to, I'll send it to Mr. Glass and Mr. Gaither to send it to you all.
Thank you.
All right. We're good? Yes, thank you all.
Bye, everybody. Can our academics team get her email and send her a follow-up thanking her for her time? That's going to be all for our meeting today. Thank you to our guests who have came. I hope you enjoyed yourself. I had a motion to adjourn the meeting. Is there a second?
I second.
Who second?
I-
It was moved by Tanaya and it was properly seconded by Kendi. Are there any questions? All in favor say aye. Any opposed? Have a great Wednesday.